Hi, let us discuss Essay 330. Auditor's response to, overall response to the assessed risk of material misstatement. How an auditor address an overall response. What is the response to the assessed risk is the subject matter of these discussions. Before moving into the essay part, we must understand certain concept of the financial statement and the assertion level. What is an assertion? Assertion is a representation by the management which is embodied in the financial statement, which may be either express way or implied way. In order to rely on such assertions, auditor has to do substantive audit procedure and test of controls. If all are okay, then he can rely on the management assertions. What is a substantive audit procedure? It is an audit procedure designed by the auditor to check the validity of the assertions, that is comprises of test of controls and test of details. Substantive analytical procedure, we will discuss the test of details. A transaction which is checking in all the aspects is called test of details. For an example, for a sales transaction, the checking can be have through the carbon copies of the bills issued to the customers. Sale order is there, bill of lading, customers receipts in the banks, and the debtors confirmation. Substantive analytical procedure is checking a transactions with the help of ratio. For example, GST rate and the GST payable, if comparing that two figure will arrive at the sales figure. Test of control is an audit procedure designed by an auditor to check the operational effectiveness of internal controls with respect to prevention, detection and corrections of material misstatements. What is an overall response? Overall response is an audit procedure which is designed by an auditor to address the risk assessed during the course of audit procedure. How an auditor respond overall manner to the addressed risk is overall response. Another way of addressing the risk is designing a further audit procedure. Auditor shall design a further audit procedure to address the risk of material misstatement at the assertion level, whose nature, timing and extent will be determined by or as a response to, as an overall response to the identified risk of material misstatement. For designing further audit procedure, auditor shall pay the attention to the inherent risk and the control risk. Why? Because the ROMM, risk of material misstatement, is a combination of both the inherent risk and control risk. So it is necessary for designing a further audit procedure to check the inherent risk aspects and the control aspects. Next discussion will be the test of control aspects. Auditor has to conduct the test of controls to ensure prevention, detection and correction measure for the material misstatement at the assertion level. In that aspect, auditor has to expect that internal control is operating effectively. For checking that operational effectiveness, auditor has to conduct the test of controls, and the substantive audit procedure will not alone provide any base. In that situation, auditor has to resort on test of control. What is a test of control? Test of control is checking the operational effectiveness of internal controls. For an example, auditor visit a particular department, observe the functions which is carried on the department, obtain a standard operating procedure, and comparing the actual function going on and with the standard operational procedure. If it is okay, then next is checking the delegation of authorities. If there is a strong control with respect to the delegation of authorities, the internal controls operating effectively. This is one process. And the timing of test of control, the timing will be decided by the auditor, whether it may be a particular time frame or it may be a throughout the period. In case the test of control has been happened in interim period, auditor has to check whether there is any significant changes has been happened, and also check its operational efficiency. Also design what are the additional further audit procedure has to be conducted for remaining period. In case where the auditor rely on the previous year audit evidence, in that case auditor has to observe whether there is any significant changes has happened If the changes has happened in the internal control system, he has to re-evaluate the internal control system to check its operational efficiency with respect to prevention, detection and control. If there is no changes has happened, then auditor has to re-evaluate the internal control system at least thrice in the audit period and some part of test control during the current period. Then auditor relying on the internal control system to control over significant risk. If auditor relying on internal control for the significant risk aspect, then he has to do the test of controls, evaluating the effectiveness of internal control. In that aspect, auditor has to evaluate whether there is any material misstatement has been identified during the test of control process. If any material misstatement has been identified, that indicate that there is a weakness in internal control system. Even if material misstatement is not detected by the auditor, the control may not operate effectively. If there is any serious deficiencies in the internal control system, then auditor has to report the matter to the appropriate level to the management and those charges with governance. Next, our discussion is substantive audit procedure. What is substantive audit procedure? Irrespective of the assessed risk of material misstatement, auditor is required to carry out the substantive audit procedure based on the materiality which we have already discussed. Substantive audit procedure with respect to the financial closing process. Auditor shall design an audit procedure. We should bring into the light that agreeing or reconciling the financial statement with its underlying record, auditor has to check the significant adjustments and the accounting assumptions made during the previous year to check its effectiveness, and also auditor has to check the journal entries. A control over journal entries also required. So a substantive audit procedure with that dimension also warranted. If the auditor has identified any significant risk, then auditor has to design a substantive audit procedure to address as a measure, as a countermeasure for the addressed risk. Timing of substantive procedure will be decided by the auditor. Adequacy of presentation and disclosure. Auditor shall design an audit procedure to understand the overall presentation of financial statement are as per the applicable FRF. Next is sufficiency and appropriate audit evidence. During the many stage, auditor relies upon the audit evidence for previous year or interim period. Auditor has to conclude that whether sufficient and appropriate audit evidence has been obtained. If sufficient and audit evidence is not obtained, then auditor has to qualify his audit report. Audit documentation is the last part. Auditor has to document what his overall response, how the manner in which he responded to the assessed risk of material misstatement at financial statement level, same operation for the assertion level, and result if any obtained also has to be documented. Also document the financial statements year ending documentation procedure. Then previous year audit evidence, if he rely on previous year data, what are the data obtained has to be documented. So this is our small discussion of this standard. Thank you for watching.